welcome to another episode of Geekly Speaking About. On today's episode, we'll be speaking with local Minneapolis-based singer-songwriter Beth Kinderman and members of her band, The Player Characters. She'll be talking about the Kickstarter for her latest album. Enjoy! Hi Beth, how you doing?
Hey, doing okay. Thanks for talking to us, Trisha.
No, it's my pleasure. You and I met at Convergence a couple years ago at the Late Night Music Circle. And one of the things that struck me about you as an artist is that you have this sensibility that is just the way you go, the way you play and sing your songs was just instantly striking to me. And the song that I liked of yours the most was Princess. And I can see from that song that was from your first album, there's a lot of themes. So tell me more about who you are as a songwriter and the kinds of music you like to play.
Well, Princess, I think, is actually a really good representation of a lot of the things that I do with songwriting. I wrote that with the inspiration of the second season of the show Farscape, which some of the people watching this video will probably have seen. I had done a songwriting challenge in 2005, where the goal was to write and produce an entire album in the month of February. And actually, I later went on to do a similar challenge to write some of the songs that are at issue with this Kickstarter. But that earlier project was sort of my first stab at that kind of thing, taking geeky themes and writing songs inspired by TV, movies, books, games, just the things that I'm passionate about, but writing them in such a way that even someone who wasn't familiar with the source material would hopefully still get something out of the song. And my hope with a song like Princess is that even if the person has never seen Farscape or never seen the specific episodes of Farscape that song is inspired by, that they can connect to the emotional reality that's in that song. And hopefully, ideally, that they'll think it's cool enough that they'll go and watch Farscape, because Farscape's amazing. And I think
I only got through the first season of it, but yeah, it's definitely one on my list of things to complete. I don't know, is it still on Netflix, do you know?
I don't know. It was for a long time. It's the second season of Farscape is when it really hits its stride.
I think I agree with you there. So you've been singing and playing for a long time. Tell me more about your band, The Player Characters.
Well, I've got two of my three bandmates here with me tonight. Our third bandmate, Elizabeth Greenberg, lives very far away, so she unfortunately could not be here for this interview, but she is going to be with us this coming weekend at the Ohio Valley Folk Fest, where we're performing, so that's going to be really exciting. And she sings and plays violin, and you can hear her on a number of our records as well as on the current project. And over on this side of me, I have Hartley, who is my drummer, and he has been with the band since the beginning in 2008. And then on the other side of me, Dave Stagner, who plays guitar and anything else that is needed, and Dave produces and mixes all of our records. So together, the three of us and Elizabeth are the Player Characters.
So I remember reading that you had met Dave while he was helping to produce your first album. How would you say that you worked together as bandmates, also as producer and writer? Can you tell me more about that kind of collaborative process?
Well, I'd definitely like Dave to weigh in on that and get his perspective on it as well. But I think one of the interesting things about the musical relationship that Dave and I have is that in a lot of ways, we learned a lot of this stuff together. That I got together with Dave when I was just starting to explore the idea of going into the studio and recording music and being able to share it in that way. And Dave, at the same time, was kind of just starting to get really serious about building a good home studio and learning how to mix and engineer and do all of those skills. So I think it was really helpful for both of us, for him to have all of this material that needed to be recorded that really pushed the limits of what we thought we knew how to do, and gave us the chance to try out new things and fail sometimes and succeed sometimes and learn new stuff together. And it gave me the chance to have a reliable place to record and to be able to release records on something like a regular schedule, and just to have that step up in professionalism from like demoing stuff in my bedroom, which is what I had been doing previously. But I'd love for Dave to give his perspective on that too.
Yeah, well, Beth and I met not quite a year before we started working together. It was MarsCon. 2008?
Yeah, 2008, I think.
And
no, seven.
2007. MarsCon 2007, we were both in a music circle and going off on our mutual love of Richard Thompson. And I think we did 52 Bits of Black Lightning together, which I swear I'll never do, which is
Yeah.
unusual for me. But, and then we kept running into each other, and we became, like online friends and live journal back in those days.
Yeah.
And
I remember those days.
doing our first album and was asking about studios and stuff. I'm like, I could do it for you, and I wouldn't charge you anything. And it was the first album I ever produced too.
Yeah, the price was really right on that because studio time is not cheap, and I think it freed us up to take more risks that we weren't constantly on the clock. Apart from that, it was a project that both of us were learning from and were passionate about in that way.
And then sorry, go ahead, Dave. I apologize.
Yeah, so we started working together. We sat down, did some pre-production, figured out what the songs were and stuff, and I was like, well, I'm going to bring people in. I wanted to bring in a few different drummers I knew to get some variety, and Justin was the first drummer we worked with, and Beth.
That was going to be my next question. How did Justin join this merry crew?
Justin and I were already in another band, Things for Ninjas, and had been playing together off and on a little before that, and a few years. And I was like, oh, I think he'll be good for some of these songs. And then it was like, no, this is great. And we also had Nikki Walker, who sang on the first album, and she and Beth have a much longer musical history. She's too busy with life to be part of the band anymore, but she's singing on the new album, which is very exciting to me. It makes me very happy because I just finished tracking all of Nikki's stuff, and it's beautiful. I love how their voices work together. But yeah, we learned a lot. We recorded that first album in January. I'm actually credited with playing Furnace on the record. Weather. Turn the furnace off so it wouldn't make a ton of noise while we were recording. Record really quick and go turn it back on before the house froze.
We were recording in January and February with the goal of releasing at MarsCon, which is the first weekend in March every year. And then, of course, there's lead time of getting the CDs actually printed that has to happen. So our first record came together really quickly. And then we took more time with future releases. But it was, in a lot of ways, I think, just getting it out of the way and kind of getting over that psychological hurdle of like, this is the first thing I'm releasing. It has to be perfect. And it has to be all of these things. And just, kind of ripping the Band-Aid was...
And like Beth mentioned earlier, we have a bad habit as a working pair of not realizing we don't know how to do something. So we just go and do it anyway. And we have historically done that. I believe Hero's Journey is strongly carrying on our musical tradition of biting off more than we can chew.
So when you released your first album, what year was that? Like about 10 years ago?
8.
8 years ago.
It's just having a 10-year anniversary now, and we actually, on our Bandcamp, have a re-recording of one of the songs from that first album that I think kind of shows the development. So anybody who's curious to kind of see what we've learned and how we've put a new spin on these things can go and check that out on our Bandcamp page.
Yes.
How would you say that you've grown as a band? Like, from what I remember reading from the Kickstarter, you're releasing this under your name alone because you feel as if it's different from what you play and what you write as part of Beth Kinderman and the player characters. Tell me more about how this album, how you feel that this album is different from what you've done before, and how playing with Justin and Dave and Nikki and Elizabeth has helped you grow as a band together.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that one of the big impacts that getting together with a band had is that now when I write songs, I find myself writing songs for a band. When I was only performing solo, I would mostly write with an eye toward how am I going to arrange this for solo acoustic guitar, because that was all that I had. And I would sometimes write things and say, oh, this would sound really cool if I had drums on this or electric guitar, but if I was going to play it out, I would sort of have to be able to recreate that just with me and my guitar. And having a band there and having other musicians that I knew I could rely on to work with really gave me the chance to push the limits in terms of how I wrote songs, write things that were more complex, and also to write specific parts with people in mind. Like when I hear a drum part in my head now, I know that Justin is going to play it, and I know, the sort of drum parts he can play and what he excels at. And so I come up with ways that, he can really excel on the stuff that I write and things that play to his strengths and that will sound really great when he specifically is drumming on them. And the same for having extra vocalists in the mix. I think a lot of my newer songs have experiments with, harmonies or counterpoint stuff where there's two different vocal lines going on at the same time, and the song sometimes doesn't really make sense unless you have a second vocalist to sing that second part. And again, that's stuff you can't do solo. So that's really been one of the things that has changed.
Now, with the increase in technology, like you and I are looking at each other on a screen. I'm recording you on my computer. Like we're talking to each other in near real time.
Yeah.
That's not something that could have been available to a young artist like 8 years ago. And the way I think of how people are doing music on the internet now, like you have people doing layers upon layers of, like, they'll write the melody and they'll write a drum key and they'll write a guitar and they can layer it on top of themselves. What do you think is the benefit of having a live band to play with you as opposed to doing the parts yourself?
I think that it's just so, first of all, these people are better at some of these instruments than I am. I mean, Justin is a much better drummer than I will ever be. I mean, I can fake it on a djembe, and I enjoy doing that and getting to drum along with him. But Justin has put, time and effort into learning how to play drum kit that I just simply am never going to have time in my life to do. So having that resource to draw upon of people who have put their focus in different places and who have talents and skills in different places, it really becomes more than the sum of its parts. But what you said about having access to a band and being able to do more, I also think there's something to be said for going back to basics. Like when I first started home recording, I had this very, very rudimentary 8-track recorder setup, which basically means you can only record 8 tracks of anything at all, ever, on a particular song. After that, it gets just really complicated and it's not going to work as well. It's going to get muddy and messy. And
elaborate demos.
Yeah, and with the way that this particular 8-track recorder was set up, once you put the first 4 tracks down, you had to bounce those to a separate track, and then they couldn't change anymore. You could put 4 more tracks over that, but once you had the bed of like the basic 4 tracks, then you were stuck with that. And
that
having those constraints, I think that constraints are one of the things that really makes, at least it makes my creativity blossom when I feel like there's some limit on what I can do or how I can do it. And sometimes it's like you have something like GarageBand or, another digital audio thing where you can pretty much, with the programs they have now, just indefinitely keep layering stuff on. Oh yeah, I think this could use 4 or 5 guitars. Oh yeah, a bass part, yeah, some synths, and let's do drums over here. And I think it's really easy to get lost in that and to kind of bury your song
that was
under
Apocalypse
that.
Blues.
I thought GarageBand.
Yeah, Justin has been learning GarageBand lately and has produced some really interesting instrumentals and fun stuff as he's been exploring that. But I really enjoyed just the strictness of that and kind of how austere it could be. I think it really forced me to focus on what is each part contributing to this song and what is it bringing to what's going on. And because if I use this, then I don't have it later. I couldn't hide the flaws of something under a bunch of trickery. And I think that's probably why I've never been quite as comfortable with something like GarageBand as I was with that old kind of janky 8-track recorder. But then again, I have a studio and a band now, so I don't have to.
That's been a really interesting experience, especially with Hero's Journey. I'm just like pulling out all the stops, teaching myself a ton about how to mix, how to improve arrangements. I just want this to be a completely amazing record. And the songs are there, but the production side falls heavily on me. I was going to say something earlier, and missed it while it was going by, but something I noted early on. It wasn't our first album, which we just sort of hammered out the door with the material that Beth had. But the second album, Apocalypse Blues, that's when Beth started writing for the band. And I remember the moment very distinctly. She started bringing the 3 songs that would become the Apocalypse Blues trilogy into the band, clearly written for a full band. And they're a gorgeous centerpiece. I'm still really, really proud of how all that came out. Besides the fact that was a pullout, all the stops, we had no idea we shouldn't do things. Let's not have a 30-person choir again, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was really clear, this shift in Beth's songwriting, and Apocalypse Blues as a trilogy. It's a trilogy about the women of Battlestar Galactica, because somebody needed to write a song about Admiral Kane, and I think this is probably the only song anyone's ever written about her.
Very possible, yeah.
But it was great. It was, for me as a musician, I'm not just like trying to layer parts on top. I had much more of a hand in the creation. And some of it, like the first song of the trilogy was really wide open for me. I wrote a little melody that I love. Second song, Beth had this magnificent riff, but I get to play this beautiful Ennio Morricone spaghetti western part. And then the third song, there's a whole mess of me just hanging out in my basement playing nothing but feedback. It's just like this mysterious sound. Part of the fun of this is Beth never says to me, "No, Dave, that's too weird. Back off."
I'm not sure I got that, Justin. But could you say it again? I'm not sure I got that.
I think that with Dave, I don't tend to say that's too weird, because I think that our weirdness levels are kind of calibrated similarly. There are certain times when I've heard like a particular sound effect or something and said, no, we're not. There was one thing on a song that I still don't know really what it was or where it came from, but it sounded for all the world like something they would play like when the Disney princess, transforms into like the fancy ball gown, and Dave was very happy with this sound, and I was very not happy with this sound.
But that's beautiful, and everybody
A bit too much like wind chimey, tingling. Sort of glissando thing.
Yeah,
like
it was sort of like a chime thing. It just really was not working.
Not your aesthetic.
That's the other thing about working with a band too, is I think that, a good band is in a lot of ways, it's like a marriage in so many ways. You choose to like work with this person and commit to them, and sometimes you drive each other crazy, but at the end of the day, you're working toward the same goal. And I think that's what's been really valuable with working with these collaborators, is knowing that we all have the same goal of making the songs the best that we can be. And, which is not to say we don't butt heads or disagree about things, but it's, at the end of the day, we can take a step back and realize that we're all trying to just make the music the best it can be, and it can be about the music and not about like an individual person's ego.
And as a musician, it's been a delightful context for me, because Beth writes these really interesting songs that I would never write on my own. What we call the key of Beth.
Yeah.
And I get to make up sounds, which I love doing. There's a lot of sounds that you'll hear on Hero's Journey. There's a lot of things you would never know are guitar. In fact, the song we're going to play later, you'll hear stuff that doesn't sound like a guitar at all. And I'm actually faking what I do on the record, which is much cooler, but I don't have my computer here to do that with.
Dave, you mentioned something about the key of Beth. What does that mean? And what do you think that means?
Maybe
what would you say the key of Beth is?
Justin, go for it. You don't know.
How would you characterize the key of Beth? I think you're the person for the job.
Well, the way I've heard it described is that it changes key in some very unexpected ways. And that what instrument that you played a jazz instrument before?
I played the trumpet.
It was jazz trumpet, and so she kind of approaches things from more of a jazz sensibility. Things that are more averagely done in jazz are done in a rock or a prog song.
Yeah, I think of it much more as progressive rock than jazz.
Yeah, I would absolutely not call myself a jazz player at all, partially because I'm not nearly as good as those people are.
Well,
but
right, but
yeah. but the influence is there. I mean, so much of what I learned, like it made a really big impact on me that my, jazz band director way back in the day had said there was a person who was making a solo and apologized for playing a wrong note in this improvised solo, and the band director just immediately turned around and said, there are no wrong notes, just better choices. And I feel like I live by that, not just in music,
nice.
in life, but there are no wrong notes, just better choices.
I occasionally describe the sound of the band to people who've never heard us before as like if Lilith Fair had a prog band.
Yeah,
I see. That makes
To do
sense.
15-minute long trilogies about the women of Battlestar Galactica.
Absolutely.
I think that kind of thing would be like if they were to bring Lilith Fair back. I think that sort of thing would actually be very strong. Would be, if not the main stage, definitely one of the highlights of the side stages, right?
Yeah.
The thing about being a geek in today's society is that it's more accepted than it used to be. It's more out there front and center, making whole bunches of huge dollars and money and stuff like that. But you've chosen to go back to the core of storytelling for this project, A Hero's Journey. How long have you been thinking about this project, and like what was the genesis of how you decided to make this particular album and why?
Yeah, this project has been a really long time in the making. Dave alludes to having some of these kind of prog influences in my background, or if not necessarily straight up prog, stuff that like I have the folk singer-songwriter influences, but then just some weird stuff. Like one of my favorite musicians for ages has been Kate Bush, who does a lot of the songwriting topic type stuff I do, not about geek culture because it sort of predates that to a degree, but drawing inspiration from literature and from film, and writing these just profoundly weird songs about that. So there was that element in my background, and she has made a lot of concept albums in her life, and I always felt that I wanted to make a concept album at some point in my music career. I just didn't really know what to make a concept album about. And when I read the book The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell, this idea just kind of flew into my head. I said, I wonder if anyone has ever made a concept album inspired by this material. And at the time I had the idea, I kind of looked on the internet, looked around, and no one ever had. And I've had the idea for long enough that now some other people have made based on this, but not really in the same genre that I'm doing. There's one that's kind of like Burning Man, hippie kind of jazz fusion stuff, and then there's a jazz piano album that a guy in Germany made, and then a dude that's working on a hip-hop concept album that's spanning like 3 or 4 discs. Very ambitious project, but no, it's okay because that story is big enough to hold a lot of people's stories, and no one has told the story the way that I am telling
I
it.
think officially it's big enough to hold everyone's story.
Yeah, that's kind of the concept behind the whole thing. So I was thinking about it for a long time and sort of telling people I have this idea, I want to do something with it, and just kind of not getting around to actually doing anything about it. And there were a lot of reasons for that, but ultimately it was just time. I'd been sitting on it for too long, and that was when February album writing month came along. I had referred before to the songwriting challenge I had done in the past, and FOM, February album writing month, is kind of an evolution of that, where the goal is to write 14 songs in the month of February. So I wrote most of what's on the record over the course of 2 FOMs. I wrote 14 of the songs in the first FOM that I did in 2014, and then in 2015 I came back around again and revised a few of them and wrote some of the instrumentals and kind of finished up the project then. And we've been workshopping it ever since, doing demos, just kind of playing around with how we want to approach it, and now it's like finally we feel like it's been sitting there for long enough. Some opportunities came up this year that really suggested that it was the right time to try and get it out into the world, and so far it seems like that's been a good strategy because the Kickstarter is doing pretty well. We still have a ways to go. I think we were at 77% the last time I checked in, so we're getting pretty close. We have the rest of October to fund it in, and hopefully with a little bit of luck we will get there.
Yeah, it was an overwhelming project to tackle. I mean, it's a 17-song concept album, and for me, from a production standpoint, I want this to sound like a single coherent piece of music, but it covers an enormous range. There's borderline a cappella singing all the way to these pounding broad rock epics where there's, oh God, what all is going on at the end of Master of Two Worlds? Oh my
A
God.
lot.
Everybody is singing. Everybody except me. I'm not singing. Yeah.
I don't think you sing it all on this one, Justin.
Nope.
Yeah,
It's
he's
all
done.
female voices.
Oh, yeah, that's that's a good
Is
point.
that something
Yeah, I just realized that.
you just realized? Is that something you just realized right now?
Yeah, it's one of the things that we've been really fixated on, much to Justin's occasional frustration, has been being really deliberate about what a particular instrument is doing and which voices, what each voice means. So if we have the violin, what does that represent? What character is that in this narrative? If we have this type of electric guitar sound, what does that represent? And I think, Justin, with your huge bag of dingers and whatsits that you're always able to add all sorts of stuff, it's been an occasional exercise in frustration being told,
Right.
yeah, what would the washboard represent in the narrative of this album? When he just really wants to play the damn washboard.
Well, it would be really cute on the song. It just doesn't represent very well. And, as Beth mentioned, there are instruments that appear everywhere on the record. So I hear Beth's voice as the storyteller and Beth's acoustic guitar as the framework of the story. But Elizabeth's violin playing represents the spirit of the hero. And Elizabeth is a fantastic musician. She's the real musician amongst us. She has like a stuff. And
to be fair, I get it. I just
Yeah.
just with my kind of Foley artist approach to percussion, sometimes.
Every now and then, you just want to play a vibraphone. You just play a vibraphone, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
The vibraphone doesn't need to mean anything. It's just a vibraphone.
That's the great thing about doing this as a band, is that even though it's credited to me, I think it's largely a marketing decision. I think that when people see player characters on something, they assume that they're getting, something that has to do with games or geek culture or humor. And a lot of times when they pick up one of their releases, that is what they're getting. But with this one, it's really different. What I'm writing it's very personal, and I don't want people to believe that, if they pick this up, they're going to get something that's full of, the Battlestar Galactica songs again, and zombie songs and comic books and stuff. That'll always be a part of what we do and a part of the songs that we play. But with this release in particular, my name is on it for that reason, but I could not do it without these people here with me and the other people on the record, and it is their project as much as it is mine, and I'm really grateful for everything that they've given to it.
So, of the songs you've written so far, which would you say would be the most personal and why?
Wow, that's a tough question because
of all songs, or just on Hero's Journey?
Yeah.
On Hero's Journey. Sorry, on this project.
There's a song on kind of the back half of the album that's called Rescue from Without. That's the first one that springs to mind. And in like the concept of the hero's journey, Rescue from Without is like the stage at which, the hero, the protagonist of the story, is like trying to get out of the magical world where they've gone on this quest to like get the boon, get the Holy Grail, get the thing they're after. And they're almost out of there, but they can't do it by themselves. And the people that remember them in the outside world have to come back and get them out. So I took kind of an approach to that song that was really like, I feel super awkward playing that song because I feel like it's so personal and specific to me that like no one can ever relate to it. There's like stuff in those lyrics that's so, it feels like it's too exact, like too precise, and like how, like, it just seems like this ridiculous thing to say out loud to somebody, but people have come up to me after the few times I've played that live and said that it really moved them. So I think it's probably doing the work it has to do, but it's just one of those things like it feels so personal that it's hard to even talk about or like articulate properly what's going on with that. And there are other songs on the record too that I think touch aspects of my personality and my life that are really deep and really very honest in a way that I haven't always been in songwriting, but that's the one that immediately comes to mind.
Now, I remember back when we first started working together, and you had a lot more confessional material in the first record, and then you realize, wait, I got this band. I can just write stuff about science fiction and comic books, and I don't have to write personal confessional stuff. I don't have to fit the expected mold of a modern folk singer.
Especially a modern female folk singer. I think that people assume a lot of the times that if a woman is making music, she's, she's singing about her boyfriend or something. And
Yeah, or you flash back to the female '90s singers who,
yeah, and
you
even
know, like the Jewel or the
Jewel or
who
Sarah.
else was going, like all of those fair
yeah,
performers.
and even on that first record, there are songs that people have assumed that it's about something from my life, but no, it's something that happened to a character I played in a role-playing game. And I still love doing that kind of writing. I love being able to inhabit a character and kind of try on their life and tell those stories from their life. But I'm glad that I got the chance to tell my own stories too.
And something I noted when the first time I listened to Hero's Journey mostly through, she wrote 14 songs of Hero's Journey, and all the songs that have lyrics. The other 3 are instrumentals.
Except I revised Woman as Temptress a couple times after.
Yeah, Woman's Temptress took some work, but that's amazing how strong that the albums had very little revision from them. One song, and even there you stuck with the music structure, so that you just needed dialed back a little.
Yeah.
But the thing that struck me when I listened to it all in order for the first time is the songs are progressing through and telling the stories of a hero in a kind of abstract way, and then it hits Rescue from Without, and suddenly it's this deeply personal song. And that's like when the hero has returned from their magical quest back into the real world. Suddenly it's all about you. And wow, it's really a very powerful moment of the record. And in production, it stands out too. That is probably the most naked bit of production on the record. It's not the simplest, but I think the very simplest goes to Atonement with the Father.
Which is also really personal in its way, but in a different way.
And
So tell me about the song that you're going to play for us right now.
Well, the song that we're going to play is called Supernatural Aid. It's number 3 out of 17 on this record and on the hero's journey, and it's the point in the story at which the hero meets a mentor, meets somebody that's going to teach them what to expect and kind of help them and support them. So it's drawing from that in a universal sense, but also pulling in some images from my own life of times that I've felt mentored or supported by other people. And so, yeah, it's you can hear it right now on the EP that we have out. It's probably a good thing to let people know that we've made a lot of progress on this already. And if you go on our Bandcamp page, you can hear an EP that has the first 5 songs on the record and then one from closer to the end. And this is one of the songs in its not quite final form. I maybe like getting close. It's still missing a few guitar parts, I think. But
yeah, the first 5 songs are in pretty good shape. The 6th song is well away from being completed.
yeah, but that will give people a sense of what they can expect to hear and kind of some of the arc of this record and what we've done so far and where we're still going.
And the first EP is one of the lower levels of the Kickstarter rewards. Is that correct?
Anybody who donates anything pretty much $10 or above gets a copy of that EP right away. I've been emailing people pretty much as soon as I see them pledge and sending them a download card, and it's been cool to get that immediate feedback and see people grabbing it and enjoying it. So just about anyone who pledges, as long as it's $10 or above, will get that in addition to whatever other rewards are above that.
Great. So let's go ahead and hear it.
All right. You all ready? Okay. 1, 2. So take it as a comfort, take it as a gift. How many feet of walk this path's been for you to learn the lessons they now offer for you. You thought that you were different, you thought it was just you. You thought the journey was a special glory, but we're all heroes in our own life story. Way now, my mind. And I don't know that it gets better, still waiting on that Hogwarts letter. Maybe we just get stronger given time. Because there was a night when I couldn't find my way. I stumbled by late in the cold, deep darkness, but there was someone with me in the darkness. Cause I could hear them singing, and I could see their fires. And when I reached them, they opened up wide, a circle large enough to draw me inside. Wait now, don't leave me yet. You don't have to do it alone. Every time you think it's the end, is when you think your chance is through. Somebody else will come to rescue I don't know that it gets better, still waiting on that Hogwarts letter. Maybe we just get stronger given time. I don't know that it gets better, still waiting on that Hogwarts letter. Maybe we just get stronger given time. I don't know that it gets better, still waiting on that Hogwarts letter. Maybe we just get stronger given time.
That was lovely.
Thank you.
That was absolutely lovely. So, in addition to, of course, going to the Ohio, remind me on this.
Ohio Valley Folk Fest, yeah.
Thank you. What else are you going to be doing to promote this album until the Kickstarter ends on October 31st?
Well, we've been keeping things updated on the Kickstarter page itself, so you can see what we've been working on there. And another cool thing that just recently happened is that in this past week, I fortuitously managed to make some connections to a bunch of other people that are making music similar to what we do. Geeky music, nerdy music, and it's a bunch of women and non-binary people who are in this particular genre. And we've kind of realized that we can all help each other in terms of promoting each other's releases, giving each other tips on various things. And it's been a really cool thing to experience in the past week or so, all of these people who have kind of been moving in the same circles, but not necessarily had a lot of interaction, just getting to know each other. So I've been making some connections there. There's a really neat playlist on YouTube that you can look up and hear a bunch of different songs, see a bunch of different videos by all of these bands and all of these musicians who are doing stuff similar to what we do. And hopefully everyone can discover some new favorite bands that way. And the URL for that playlist, if anybody wants to look at, is bit.ly/somegreatmusic. And it's on, or if you Google Some Great Music, or Google it on YouTube, yes. Search Some Great Music on YouTube. You'll turn it up, and it's the double clicks on the folks from that band who've been really instrumental in putting that together. So if you're into that style of music, comedy music, nerdy music, geeky music, it's something that I think anyone who's watching this or seeing stuff on Twin Cities Geek would enjoy.
Okay, so you'll be appearing at the let me try that again. So you'll be appearing in Ohio, and then are there any other gigs in town that you'll be doing between now and the end of the year, or?
You know, we don't have anything scheduled yet. We're really focused on wanting to be in the studio and put our time together into getting this release finished, especially with, people waiting for it now that the Kickstarter is live. But we're typically at most of the sci-fi conventions in town, MarsCon, MiniCon, and Convergence. Summer, all of us have a presence there. Dave and I are really involved with running music at both MiniCon and Convergence, so people in the community may have seen us out doing that. Who else knows what will happen between now and then? We try to be really receptive to stuff as it comes along, and we are willing to play just about anywhere, anytime. So who knows what will come up between now and then. Anybody who wants can follow us on social media or go to our website, bethkinderman.com, and we announce anything there as it happens.
Okay, so again, Beth, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the fact that you and Dave and Justin took your time out of this evening to talk with us. And good luck with the Kickstarter. And I hope to be able to review it when the album comes out later on.
Thanks, Tricia. It was great to talk to you.
Right. Bye.
Bye.
I stand before your threshold, O guardians of the East. Breathe on me with inspiration. passion that has